Hello, it's me again. Okay, so I've decided to create this video to talk a little bit about where I'm at in the program. I'm on, I believe it's week 2 now, and in the second course, kind of halfway, well, more than halfway into the second course. And I also want to talk a little bit about how I completed a course in 2 days. And this is primarily for courses at WGU that are performance-based, which means that, well, generally it's a paper, and generally it's quite a detailed paper that you have to write. And I should mention that I'm in a graduate program, the Curriculum and Instruction program, and my observation is that they do at least 2 assessments per course, but generally it's 3. I haven't seen any of the courses, even the subsequent courses, having more than 3 assessments. So for the first course, though, it was 2 assessments, which were 2 papers. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about how I did that, because, that it wasn't necessarily easy, I would say. The first course that I took was it's in the program, and for you, if you haven't started, it'll be at the very first of the month. Now, in the past, I've done some research, and they used to let you do coursework prior to the start of the course, but they don't do that anymore. So the very first day of your program is when you get to start your program. Now, prior to the start of your program, you will have to do an orientation, which is very straightforward. I think essentially the whole aim is just to get familiar with the user interface of the platform, like the learning content management platform, and which is fairly straightforward. And I would say I've done a lot of online courses, and it's one of the better ones. And actually, it's quite innovative because it gives you stats in visual ways, like how far you've progressed, as well as kind of your completion of assignments and your completion of the learning material. So it's quite well done. But anyways, the point is that you have to do this orientation. And I would not leave that to the day before you start. I would suggest doing it, as soon as they give it to you, which is a couple weeks before, give you access to it a couple weeks before the start date. And in that, just make note of questions that you have and ask your program mentor, because you will have connection to them prior to starting. And so, questions that I had were more to do with kind of like how to submit an assignment, because there is a tool that they use that everyone has to use in order to assess your paper for plagiarism. And so there was kind of a glitch, and because I was testing it, for some reason it doesn't always give you that gives you a percentage, and you have to refresh your page. Anyways, the point is that I wrote down that. There are some other kind of things that I was unsure about, with like how to access the learning material, and should I use a special template for APA style. So I got that all sorted out before I started. And that was a big thing with actually the papers, is knowing, even though you might have done, like for me, I did a graduate degree, maybe you did a graduate degree in the past, or even an undergrad where you did a lot of APA, their template is actually different than maybe some other ones. So I got really familiar with the way it's supposed to look, like the headlines, okay, they needed to be, or the titles, they needed to be bolded, and then if it's a subtitle, it needed to be put to left align and bolded, and then, blah, 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 blah. And then I created a template for myself. So all I had to do was open it up and then just start the process with this template. So what I want to mention is that everything was prepared. Like, I didn't just try to figure it out on the first day. I had myself ready. And I told my program mentor that I was ready to go day 1. And I kind of did that to see if she was able to kind of prime me to what to expect. And she did. So she had sent me a small kind of a short outline of what the curriculum was going to be in that first course, as well as a little bit of an indication of what the assessment would be, meaning like what the paper focus would be, or there was multiple papers. So I was able to use that in order to start to prep myself prior to the first day. And so what I did was I went on YouTube and I started learning about the theories prior to the first day. And so I started to watch multiple videos, because what I discovered about myself was I need to learn information in multiple ways. Like, I can't just read a block of text in one textbook and then just fully understand something. So I was able to kind of read some articles, and I didn't do this rigorously. I just kind of here and there just read up on the articles, watched some videos, took some notes. And then on the day of, I was all set to go. In the morning, my main focus was just making sure I knew the theories, because the first course was all about curriculum theories. And so I, again, had the notes that I already made, but they give you a textbook and other reading material. So I went in there, and then when I was reading, I was taking notes of where I was reading the material. So, like, for example, if I was learning about social efficiency theory or whatever it is, I took a quote and I wrote it on a piece of paper, or you can type it up. I made a note of, page 89, so that I didn't have to go back and have to search for that. So if you're directly quoting an APA, as of right now, you have to put the page number. So I kind of was trying to make my process very efficient. So, obviously I took a lunch break, and then after that I just started writing. And before I started writing, I mapped out what I was going to write. And one way of doing this is to use the rubrics that they give you, and the titles that they have on the rubric, as your titles for your sections in your paper. So if it says like the 3 elements of blah, 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 then make that your section title. And it'll say like this is kind of the main section, and then if there's a subsection in the rubric, it kind of outlines that. It might say 1A. So then maybe A is kind of a subsection, and then you kind of use that title for the subsection. So I kind of put all of those titles into the paper with no content and use that as kind of like the structure. And then I kind of dumped in ideas, just kind of like, I'll be talking about this, like bullet points in each section. And then from there, I just started writing, and I just kept writing. And I think a big part of how I was able to do one of the assessments in one day and then the next assessment on the next day is that because I was a student for a long time before, as well as because I'm a working professional that has lots of different writing tasks and reading tasks, and I have to concentrate, I train that into me, that self-discipline. And I think if you're going to do a 6-month route like I'm aiming to do, then you need to come into the program with that skill developed. To develop it through the program is possible, but it's going to be harder to advance quickly. Meaning, as I'm doing the program, I'm actually getting better. Like, as I'm doing these papers, I'm getting better at being self-disciplined. But again, I'll say part of it is a proclivity, meaning a natural tendency, my personality, to just get things done. And that's why I like this kind of program, because the busy work is all cut out. But also I had been trained. So, prior to even starting the program, you might want to take a Coursera or like a little online course or a little learning task that you can set for yourself to train yourself to get into that mind space of being disciplined and being able to concentrate. So, I had told myself in that day, I'm going to do this in one day. And I could tell there were times in the day where I was like, oh, well, I don't need to do this in one day. I can just do it. I can finish it tomorrow. But, being able to set a task or a goal in your mind and then kind of work toward it and use it as a bit of a game to finish, like I really wanted to finish in that day, it helped me focus. And I think having that mentality throughout the program is going to work to my advantage, hopefully. You never know. Maybe I'll get tired or burnt out and not want to do it anymore like that. But so far, I've been able to, I wrote 2 papers. Well, now I've written 3 papers. I'm in the second course, and I'm finishing the second assessment in the second course, and I have 1 more to do. And so far, it hasn't been overly exhausting or hasn't been too challenging. I don't know what, if I've done all the papers to the caliber they're looking for, because I'm waiting for one of my assessments to be marked. But just keep in mind that they mark them very quickly or evaluate them pretty much within a couple days. And I'm gonna say this not to brag, but I guess I wrote my first paper really well because if you write your paper to a good high degree of excellence, they actually give you an award, which is just basically a certificate of excellence. And so on my first paper, I had received that. And I think what WGU is good for is figuring out ways to motivate the students. Again, you have the program mentor, you have the course instructor, you have these little accomplishments that they recognize. And then they also really push in the orientation, completing that first course within the first month, irrespective if you're going to do it in 6 months, the whole program, if you're going to do it in a year, 2 years, whatever, because they have all this data that once you get the ball rolling in the program, it's easier to continue with confidence and, again, momentum and motivation. So keep that in mind. Don't put off your first course because you feel like, oh, I can do it in the next weekend. Try to get it done, and then you can feel this feeling of, oh, I'm moving somewhere with this, and I'm in the right direction. Now, I think that's all I'm going to really talk about for this video, but I might make some more specific recommendations on and maybe I'll even do a screen capture on how I kind of set up my template to write my paper. I can't really talk on behalf of the objective assessments, which are the tests, because I only have one, and it's for a research course later on. And, I'm not necessarily the best at tests and memorization, but I think I'll probably do fine because I have prior knowledge in research design. So I don't know how long it would take to go through all the material for an objective assessment and then do the test. But again, if you have prior knowledge, you probably would be able to do a test and do hopefully okay if you've read through the content and feel like you're confident in it. So hopefully that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. You can do that in the comments, and I can go through and try to respond. And I will hopefully make some more videos just giving you updates and continue along this process. Okay, thanks very much for listening.